this issue. It is poverty. Do you have any idea how many people recently went into poverty because of paying a healthcare bill in India? 60 million, 60 million. That is even a big figure for India. In Maharashtra, we think it's around 6 million. I was able to share this also with the Health Minister Sawanji when I met him yesterday, and we also discussed this. Now, in Maharashtra, I think you have already quite a good scheme over here to help to protect. But I would like to bring this point forward from, indeed, people going into poverty. When I met the Minister of Finance, Arun Jaitley, I'm not sure he was listening well enough that how important there is even a strong economic argument to start investing in health. If on one hand the government is trying, and we really think that the Modi government is doing a very good job in lifting people out of poverty, but that you allow in one sector alone people going into poverty, I think this needs some further attention. The third one is economic growth and the price we pay. Economic growth goes with a few things. One of them is urbanization, and I think Maharashtra, and especially Mumbai, is one of the examples. Mumbai, I think with Mumbai, Maharashtra has, I think it's officially in 2011 figures, is 45% of the people are urbanized in this state. Now, while I was in China, the urbanization went up from 32 when I arrived in 2002, and it was 42 5 years later. So every year, 2% of the global of their population, and equal big sizes over here, were moving into the cities. Now, this gives many challenges, and some of you might have been able to discuss. One of the first things that people do when they go to the urban, first of all, they go to the urban area because they think there's a job. And that's the major driving force. But what do they do when they come in the urban areas? The first thing what they do is putting their bicycle against the tree and waiting for the bus or getting themselves other means of transport. Inactivity is a major issue. Their dietary habits start changing. They don't have any more access, they don't even cultivate their own things anymore, and the fast food is creeping a little bit in. Although I think in India you have many also fast food which is also can be delivered. So the Indian, I think you're still a little bit better off for a little while. But for sure the fooding habits do change. So you are being challenged in your area of non-communicable diseases. And this is something which I think you need to be looking into. The pollution. India is now the fastest, biggest country in the world is growing. I think even through demonetization, there was a little bit of a slowdown, but we're still talking about a 7%, etc. That is enormous. But do you realize that for every percentage of GDP growth, that you need to have more energy? And India is highly dependent on coal. China was 68, between the 66 and 68% depending on coal when I was there. India is around the 70%. So for every single percent of energy growth, you also get more pollution. And this is definitely also an issue of major concern in the area of non-communicable diseases again and respiratory illnesses. Then for sure, if people are moving so fast to the urban areas, it gives major challenges, and again to the services delivery of fast-growing urban population. The slum population as such is also specific challenges. The fourth challenge, but I will be very brief about this one, is when you have economic growth, people are not equally benefiting. So within economic growth, your inequities, if you had them already, they only will become worse. And this as such is a challenge on its own. Now, what are some of the solutions? I think there are quite many. But there's one thing also what one have to realize, that the health sector is quite complex. Do not think wonders overnight. You have to think you have to act step by step. But what is very important, you need to have a vision. You need to have an idea where you would like to go. And what we sometimes very simply say, if you start a journey, you need to know where you would like to go. You can still go there step by step, but if you don't have the vision, it will be very difficult to have an idea if you're on the right path. Here I find the Sustainable Development Goals very good. They help you to think in 15 to 20 years. Niti Ayoka, this very moment, is thinking in the same way. And that is very helpful, because especially in the health sector, and especially when the health sector is challenged by underinvestment, If you only think in 2 or 3 years, you are held back with the realities of today. And then you don't think what you actually should have in place. The good thing is the National Health Policy 2017. Who of you has been reading the National Health Policy 2017? Very few. And you might be too shy to raise your hand. That's okay, you don't need to raise your hand. But there is a National Health Policy 2017. Anybody working and studying now in the area of health, you should be reading it. There are quite a few good things over there, including also the issue about universal health coverage, which I would like to touch upon. Universal health coverage, when people sometimes talk about, they only think about finance. No, it is not about finance. It's about services. It's about services making them accessible to people and of good quality. It's also making sure that when you have access to those services, that you don't end up in ruins or in financial difficulties. So I would like to touch upon a few issues, and I also would like to make use that our lawyer, our senior lawyer is over here, is on the issue of governance. One issue, and there's also something what I learned, is I've learned, of course, that health is a responsibility of the state here in India. Now, when I sometimes follow up with the states, they say, but the union hasn't done this. When I go back to the union, they say it's a state. It looks like a ping pong. And this is a part where I really feel that health should also be on the concurrent list. I have a few arguments for it, and I think some of you know it very well. But let me go back to some very simple things where I've been myself very much involved. SARS. What did we learn about SARS? Perhaps some of you might not know. It was in 2003, and there was one country, Canada, who had difficulties in dealing with SARS. And one of the biggest problem was that they were so organized, they were having also a very strong state system. And in one state did not know that in the other state that they had SARS. And that was the reason why it went from one to the other state. Canada has dealt with that part now. I still think that India also needs to deal far much more stronger. If you have, again, diseases don't respect borders. You cannot, health can be a state responsibility, but there are medical reasons for at a certain moment not to do. There's also something very simple, although in India it's partly realized. Think about social health insurance. There's more and more discussion about social health insurance, and I would like to go back to it. Now, I'm from Delhi. If I would have a social health insurance, I would break my leg in Pune. Can I then not be treated because I have an health insurance from Delhi? No, this is what we call portability. And again, there are good reasons for that health also should be on the concurrent list. And I hope that my lawyer friend will help us to get it over there. We are discussing it also with the Ministry of Health in these areas. Going back to universal health coverage and health investment. I worked for my almost 30 years, 25 years with the Minister of Finance. Like you already heard, I'm a medical doctor. I worked also practicals, but I've also done a little bit of economics, but I'm not an economist. And one thing what I know about ministers of finance, the first thing they are bored about if you ask for more money, because everybody's asking for more money, and say, come on, next. So that's the first thing what you get an attitude. But if they then really willing to listen, then they said, okay, tell me to invest in what and what are you going to produce? I'm going to share you 3 areas where I think India should be focusing on investing more. First of all, prevention is the best. Public health, public health, public health. And there are many areas. I think most of you know IDSP, the Integrated Disease Surveillance Program. It's a system that's supposed to be discovering a disease in time and alert everybody. But it has not been invested well enough. As a consequence, I saw the Minister of Health on the 1st of August last year. For those ones who are in India, you might know that time we had a chikungunya outbreak. But the Ministry of Health was able to share us information about chikungunya was not right. I said, Minister, the figures that you're giving is not right. And it had a lot to do with the design itself, because the IDSP is for 8% of all the sentinel sites are in the private sector. But guess where people are going? Here in Maharashtra, 80 to 85% when they're sick, you go to the private sector. So if you put your sentinel site where people are not going, you will never be able to measure properly. So we need to start investing in this area. Of course, the non-communicable diseases, and this is also where the interdisciplinary part is coming. The non-communicable diseases, I think we had some discussion also with NCDs in the conference. So I think I'm talking to experts. You all know from this is not just a simple issue for the Ministry of Health. This is a lot about behavior and behavior change, and it needs the involvement of many ministries. I was also very glad that 2 weeks ago we launched an antimicrobial resistance plan. And I will not dwell too much on antimicrobial resistance. I can talk on that one alone already 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Antimicrobial resistance, I think you all know from this family, is a major threat. We are being threatened, and perhaps in 20 or 30 years' time, we will not have any more antibiotics to deal even with the most common diseases. And I think that is a major threat. I was very happy to see that there was a national action plan by the ministry, and there were 11 ministries were there. Because, and I think you know, the Ministry of Agriculture is consuming far much more than we humans are taking. My country, we're very bad we are an export country. I'm from the Netherlands, perhaps you guessed already. We are a major export country. We were able to get our antibiotic use by 2/3 down without harming the export itself. But farmers and agriculture, the first thing what you say, please stay off us, this is our bread. I do believe that it's important that we need to support them. We make sure that the farmers have a good living, but antibiotics might not be the routine things to be used in food or for animals, etc. So this is an area many sectors are also important, let alone the environmental sector, etc. The second area where I do believe that we need to invest in is in service delivery. I have suggested a few times that you need to have a health investment plan. A health investment plan that looked at the infrastructure and looks at the issue of human resources for health. Now, in human resources for health, you have always 4 issues every country is struggling with. That's about the numbers, it's about the distribution, it's about the mix of healthcare workers, and it's about the quality. I would like to focus this time only on the mix and on the distribution. In India, just like in any other country, doctors do not want to live and work in a remote rural area. They are doctors after all. Why should they be living somewhere far away? But guess what? Still in India, despite the urbanization, most of the people still live over there. We need to get the services close to the people. And if doctors can't go, please, and I had a very good discussion with one of our colleagues who's also working in this area, we strongly believe, just like in any other country, you need to start promoting that mid-level workers are heading the clinics over there, and that they're being trained for a specific package, not such a big package as medical doctors can do, for essential services. We come up with international experience. We've written a very nice paper, and the results are internationally very good. And we are looking forward that also in India this will be further taken on, and to start off also in Maharashtra. I think it's a very important area. On the infrastructure, I will be very honest with you. I've been visiting many places here in India, and it's typically about a big country. Of course, you have many fascinating things going on, and you have centers of excellence. And even my family, you know, when you're a foreigner, you have to make a decision. If anything would happen to your family, where would you go? Would you rush back to another country, or would you stay in a country? Now, my wife and I, we will stay over here because there are many very good places. But centers of excellence is not the same that everybody has access to it and that they're everywhere and that they're affordable. I've also been to many places in rural areas which are not good. And I do believe that you need to have a health investment plan also for the infrastructure alone. I've been in infectious disease hospitals, which even the best person who could control it would have difficulty because the building alone. Because at a certain moment you need also to have buildings who can deal with some of these issues. So I'm a strong believer from that every state should have a health investment plan, outlining for what is needed on the infrastructure, outlining what is needed for the human resources for health, and also then having incentives for those difficult places to go. Just asking people to go while you know it's difficult might not work. The third area is something which I feel very passionate about, and I'm coming back again to the financial protection. India so far is an RSBY and has very interesting discussion what we call the National Health Protection Scheme, which is moving the issue a little bit further and looking at least at 400 million people to be covered in the long run, in the short run. Now, What is special about insurance? I know that Maharashtra has many services which is linked to the insurance. Insurance is risk mitigation. What do you do in insurance? In health, you do as follows. The young are subsidizing the old. The healthy are subsidizing the unhealthy. And the rich are subsidizing the poor. That is the basis of insurance. If it's for cars, if it is for buildings, etc. This is what you do. In health, we have not yet made that step. Because what would it mean in health? It would mean that everybody should be insured. I strongly hope, and I worked in a country like China, where at a certain moment the president said, every Chinese should have social health insurance by a certain year. I hope it also for India that will count. Look at my own insurance. I'm now for 25 years with WHO. The first 15 years, I was only paying in. I never got a penny back. Guess what? I'm getting older, getting some pennies back. Guess what? In 20 years, I hope I will still be here, I will be charging them. And the only reason why I can do that when I'm getting old is because there's some young people who are healthy who are paying in. So this is the vision which I think we need to move. And it's also true, you can only get there step by step. It's not overnight. But I really hope that we will move in this direction. Thank you very much for being with me too on a Saturday afternoon after a very successful congress that you had. And I would like once again to congratulate to put all those issues forward and also for me the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for throwing lights on some health-related issues in our country that we overlook, and we feel indeed privileged to have you serving in our country. May I invite a familiar face on the campus of Symbiosis, Professor Emeritus, Symbiosis Law School, Advocate Ram Jethmalani, sir. Sir is a member of Parliament in Rajya Sabha. He has also served as India's Union Law Minister and as Chairman of the Bar Council of India. At an early age of just 17, Sir obtained a law degree and started practicing law in Karachi until the independence of India. Known as a maverick lawyer, Sir is a well-known face amongst the legal community in India and has appeared in many high-profile cases concerning constitutional matters. In 2010, he was elected to be the President of Supreme Court Bar Association. His zeal for law makes him actively work as a senior advocate in the Supreme Court of India and has many distinctions to his credit. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and give it up for India's legendary legal luminary, Advocate Ram Jethmalani, sir.
My distinguished friends who are members of the Symbiosis family, and I'm very happy that today I have found a new one. Welcome, and I hope you will maintain this relationship for the rest of your life. Now I must tell you that today's program gave me no idea of what I am supposed to speak about. So I'm exercising my right of free speech. I wish I could speak about the subjects which are nearer to your heart, but I wish to speak about something which today is a matter of great anxiety for the entire civilized world. I must tell you, and you know this fact, that I am born as a Hindu and born in the province of Sindh, which is now a part of Pakistan. But I must tell you that Sindh was a very, very wonderful province, where though Hindus were in a minority, Hindus and Muslims lived a life of mutual love and affection, which is totally, totally unknown in any other part of the world. It was the land of Sufis, and they all the time sang music. That's the best pastime that they could find. I practiced law for 8 years in Karachi, Throughout that time, my only partner in practice was a person 7 years older than me. He was a Muslim. But he was a Muslim who had done his MA from the Bombay University with Buddha and Kant as his subjects. His selected subject was philosophy. We remained friends up to the last day until I was compelled to leave by the compulsions created by partition. But certainly not one of those problems was created by the local Muslims of Sindh, who remained friends. And I still remember that the day I was leaving Karachi, some of them came to see me off, and they literally shed tears and were not willing to part with me. Well, I have enjoyed that experience, but today it is that experience which compels me to speak to you about a subject which is connected with it, but therefore, of course, certainly much more tragic and much more dangerous. But I must tell you that having lived in the company of my Muslim friends, I have been a great student of Islam, and I have been a great admirer of the Prophet of Islam. I believe that every religion has a core, and apart from that core, the rest is disposable stuff, and sometimes disposable rubbish. You must judge every religion after you find out intellectually what the core of that religion is. I have read and reread the Quran. There are 2 lines in the Quran which constitute the essence of Islam. And I wish to tell you those 2 lines. The first line is that when you walk in search of knowledge, you walk in the path of God. I'm proud of that line in the Quran. The second line was still better. The second line was, does anybody know? The second line, which is as important as the first, that the ink of the scholar is more valuable than the blood of a martyr. I think I'm a student of all religions. I think that of all the religious leaders which the world has produced, Islam had the best possible prophet. When the Muslims followed his teaching, they became the masters of the civilized world. They conquered Europe, they conquered Spain. I remember a Muslim scholar born in ancient Babylon who was invited by the Khalifa to go and live in his palace. The Khalifa told him that, listen, I have so much convenience for you, as I know that you are a scholar. Come and live here in my palace and pursue your studies. I will not interfere with it. He very politely refused. And when the Khalifa said, but why don't you give me one good reason for not doing it? You will be shocked to know what reason he gave. The reason he gave is, he said, sir, if I have to shift my residence to your palace, I first require 400 camels to transport my library. And I can't afford to have 400 camels, nor is society prepared to give me